agreement covers the annexation of 4 town restrictions on development and other related matters. The notice of this ESA was filed with the commission on November 20th of 2023. Following oral presentations, the commission will have a public hearing this evening at 7 p.m. in this room to allow an opportunity for members of the public to speak. Anyone may review these proceedings and may also testify online if they wish. I'd like to at this point introduce ourselves as the commission. I am Ed Rosado, chairman of the commission.
And I'm Bob Lauderberg, I'm vice chairman of the committee.
I am Linderman, commission member.
To remain just a minute.
Great. And Andrew? Okay, I'll call Mr. Northcutt to go ahead and give us the review.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Commission on Government, as you heard, is here today to review the proposed negotiated voluntary settlement agreement between the town of Washington and Rappahannock County prior to its presentation to report for disposition. As part of its review, the Commission is holding these hearings, making investigations, analyzing local needs, and making other findings of fact and recommendations regarding the issues in the proposed agreement. Pursuant to the statutes governing its review of voluntary settlement agreements, the Commission will issue a report as to whether the proposed settlement agreement is in the best interest of the Commonwealth. A quick summary of the activities we've had to date. On November 20th, 2023, the town and county jointly filed a notice with the Commission stating the town intends to annex a portion of the county into the town and requesting the Commission to review and issue findings of the voluntary settlement agreement. Prior to our arrival today, the Commission received notice that each local body had adopted the resolution and agreed to the voluntary settlement agreement. We received a copy of that proposed agreement and the narrative supporting it. And then we've also received an indication that a copy of the notice and the agreement were sent to each locality that is contiguous with Washington or that shares its functions and revenue or tax resources with the two localities. So those materials have been reviewed by members of the Commission and the staff. As we write our report, the Commission reserves the right to at any time during the course of this review to look at additional documents or records or other materials from the parties as deemed necessary for proper access to any issues. So Martin and Gary, we may reach out to you for more stuff, but we ask that you would be available for that if needed. With respect to the report, the Commission will endeavor to have its report done on or before July 12, 2024. That is the date of our next regular scheduled meeting. Additional details regarding future meetings of the Commission, both regular and special, will be announced on the Virginia Regulatory Town Hall website, as well as the Commonwealth calendar, where you can reach out directly to that information. Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Mr. Northcutt. Any comments at this time by any other members of the commission? No. We continue. At this time, we need to set a date to close the record for this case. The commission will accept additional data and written testimony upon the date of the closing of the record, but we reserve the right to ask any party for additional data if we need it, or testimony if necessary, up until the publishing of the report. Staff has suggested closing the record on June the 3rd, so I'm going to need a motion for anyone to approve that recommendation.
So moved.
Second.
Moved. Seconded.
So probably moved and seconded. All in favor of closing the record on June 3rd, 2024, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes.
The order of proceedings for today's presentation are as follows. Mayor Whitehead will give an opening statement. Then representatives of the parties and the developer will present the voluntary settlement agreement and explain why it's in the best interest of the Commonwealth of Virginia. There will be time for the commissioners to ask questions of each presenter, as well as ask additional questions after the presentations are concluded. We'll conclude the presentation with a closing statement from the mayor. There will not be public comment at this presentation. All public comments will be heard at the public hearing this evening. We've allotted 2 hours for these presentations. Would you like, I'm asking the parties now, like any time warnings from the staff, or you know, like you need to have a 5-minute warning or a 3-minute warning, or you
I
know,
don't think that's going to be necessary.
okay. And if you'd like to take any scheduled breaks between the portions of presentations, please just let us know. Mayor Whitehead, are you ready to proceed?
Mr. Chairman. First, I'd like to thank the commission for letting me participate remotely today. I wrapped up my treatment for cancer this morning, but which I'm very happy about. But my doctor advised me I get a couple more weeks ahead of me before I should be spending a lot of time with crowds. I appreciate. I'm sorry, sir.
Wish you well. Wish you well.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been quite an experience. I welcome the commission to Little Washington. I understand you guys had a great tour, and of course the weather cooperated for today. So I hope you got a sense of just what the special kind of community that we have here in this county and in this town. As I mentioned when I came down to see y'all in Richmond, you know, town of Washington itself is a community of about 100 hardy souls, give or take, in a county of about 7,000 residents, two of the smallest communities in the Commonwealth. And you know, we've made a number of decisions over the years to make sure that we preserve this special attributes of our community, both at the county level and at the town level. Over the years, the size of the town has waxed and waned. We started out at about 250 acres or so when first chartered, and now we're at about 182 acres. With this change, just to bring us up to about 186 or so acres. So, you know, there's a long history of sort of both the size of the town population and growing and contracting, and as well as the counties, and certainly the boundaries shifting as needed over time as required by the community. The last time we concluded a boundary line adjustment with the county was back in 1999. At that time, we adjusted for, I believe it was 3 or 4 lots, and LeGrand, I don't know if you can, or if the commissioners want to look at that first slide that I sent over. If you see those irregularities on the border of the town and the north and west side, sort of give you a sense of the previous adjustments that we made to the town. And that was to bring in a similar way, to bring in lots that were straddling the county and the town border. The proposal you see before you represents, you know, a couple of years really of engagement with our community. And with the owner of the property, and I think represents a sense of both the broad community of Rappahannock's view of how best to proceed with this property. We want to see some development that both our town and our county's comprehensive plans say that we want to see some construction in and around the villages, and this is right in line with that, and supports the broader sense that we want to be able to make sure that our community is sustainable. And that those who want to stay here through the full arc of their life can, and can be supported by those, you know, a workforce that allows that. So I don't want to belabor my points. I think I can conclude with that and just say, you know, we're a small community where change comes slow if it comes at all, and I think the process of the last couple of years certainly represents that, and we appreciate the commission hearing our case, and I think it's a positive development for Rappahannock County and for the town of Little Washington at large. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it very much. Again, thanks for the hospitality. Anyone have any questions for the mayor at this point in time from the commission? Let's move on to the presentation of evidence by John Fleet. And then afterward, Terry Corrigan.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, my name is John Foote. I'm with the law firm of Walsh, Colucci, Lubelak, and Walsh, and I could buy anybody to spell all those names. I'm going to start briefly. I get around this thing. This is the future of what you've seen under construction here. Warren Avenue, and we came in this way. Down Lake Line, move the whole thing over so that, let me do that, so I'm not that.
Oh, I think we've also.
Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say the other way. He's seen it too.
Oh, okay, yes, I've seen it more times than you want to see it.
Okay.
You came in this way, down Lake Lane. This is the building that you saw in construction for the offices. It'll be linked by a covered walkway to the food pantry, which is, as you know, under construction here. Parking has all been calculated according to the requirements by the town. These are the residential units that will be under construction once this is complete up here. In order to make this work, this is the stream that you heard mentioned on the trip. That stream was a challenge for Mr. Plesko. Because it could flood, but it doesn't now. There is a large retaining wall that's been constructed through here. We were talking about the driving around the construction of this retaining wall. Was probably the greatest challenge we faced, but they were faced with good weather and good building conditions, and so it's been successfully installed. And that will, in fact, stay high enough that you will not create flooding conditions with respect. I will tell you more about this in a second. This over here is a purely conceptual, hypothetical consideration of phase 2 that you've heard about. None of this is under construction, and this is in fact the area that is contemplated for inclusion into the town's boundaries. That's actually about 4.5 acres. Yeah, about 4.5 acres of the area we're talking about, but that's the size. The whole thing is a little over 9 acres. It's a very tight site with engineered to it fairly well. But don't assume this is what it's going to look like. That's still a work in progress, and I can help explain that. What you have seen on the ground today and what you see in the future began to take shape for Chuck Opry a number of years ago. He purchased this property in 2019 and then working with friends and consultants, most notably, I suppose, were Case Dutiel, E-U-T-I-L-A, and Case, I just know, is K-E-E-S. He's from the Netherlands. He's Dutch. Been living here for very many years, but Case Dutiel and Betsy Deagle, whom you will meet, who has been working with Chuck for years before I got involved. She's a wonderful woman, and he commissioned studies of the property. Engineering studies, principally surveys, determination of soils, the kinds of things you do at an early level of pre-development activity. In that same year, 2019, the town, having been in conversation with Mr. Opry, passed a planned unit development ordinance, which it never had before, with the anticipation of a development like this as a possibility. It also amended its comprehensive plan to encourage small-scale development of housing for different income groups. And this was, remind you, in 2019. In early June of 2020, the Rappahannock Food Pantry was at that time looking to move, to build a new facility. It was totally inadequate in its current location then at the time. But the bids were far in excess of what it had raised during its capital campaign. They spoke to Mr. Opry, and he offered them the munificent proposal of how about 99-year lease at $1 a year. Think you can handle that? And the answer, of course, was we'd love to talk to you about it. And so what you've seen over there in terms of the design of that structure is actually a collaboration between Mr. Opry's architect and the food pantry architect to ensure that what is built is not just some warehouse and building, but what they wanted for their purpose. Our firm became involved in that same month, June of 2020, to assist with land use applications and their processing. And this initially, and this is rather important to understand about the way Mr. Opry went about this, this initially constituted a series of meetings over a 6-week period with members of the community at which Mr. Opry, Ms. Deedle, and in most cases me, I was present, where we asked community members what they wanted to see in Rush River Commons. To get input from the community long before any pen was actually put to paper. These documents, these drawings actually came later. From everything from the addition to the food pantry, other uses that might be placed on the property. These meetings generally lasted for more than an hour each. And I can't tell you the number of people, but I'm sure we talked to 25 to 30 people during that period of time from the high and powerful of this county down to Gary. And we got good feedback from all of them. We got feedback from those who wanted to see a mix of uses on the property, very differing mixes of uses, and some who didn't want to see anything happen to the property at all. It was a true mix of opinions and beliefs about what might happen. From them, however, did come for Mr. Ockery a sense of enhanced clarity as to what he might want to see happen, he and his family. His overarching goal has been, and I spoke to Mr. Lauterberg earlier about this, was to develop a neighborhood that would include community-based services and affordable housing at no cost to either the county or the county. And that is what is happening. The 99-year lease is simply an indication of that. And I will tell you in a moment about the housing. In the fall of 2020, Mr. Ockery retained the services of Steve Plesko, when you have met. And as I've said, Stevie has been involved from that time, 2020 to now, and has been the driving force on the production side of this project, largely responsible for what you've seen. That fall, Mr. Ockery also retained the services of Michael Ferguson, landscape architect, and Gensler architect. And if you've ever had any occasion to work with them, we were talking about two of the best firms in the Washington metropolitan area nationwide to help him develop a master plan for the project. And they were instrumental in actually putting those ideas into graphic form so they could be grasped by anybody that wanted to see them. Meetings involving both the town and the county, elected and appointed officials, started in November of 2020, almost 3+ years ago. They were to continue the discussions that had begun earlier and to put a more public face on what to that point had been private meetings with Mr. Ockery up at his farm. Presentations were made publicly to the board and town council before the end of 2020. Now the word, because we were talking to so many people, the word was very clearly through the community that Mr. Ockery was considering something, so there were no secret in any of this. The rezoning and special use permit applications that were required to bring this to fruition were filed in May of 2021, but those of you that have been involved in land use know it took us until September to obtain the approvals with the planning commission and of course to the council. And they were approved for a mix of uses that are found in the special use permit conditions that run from artisan and craft uses through food pantry, home occupation, bakery spaces, medical clinics, a museum. Those were the things that had come out of the discussions that we'd had with community members as to the kinds of things they thought might be appropriate for this piece of property. In, as the mayor has appropriately said about his community, the kinds of things that would not be considered out of place in a place like Washington. It included the construction that I mentioned before of a small number, relatively small in my land use world, 20 houses, 20 living units. You heard on the bus that we're down to 18. That's a result of engineering constraints because of the tightness of the site. Most of those, probably the vast majority of the 18, 16 probably, will have to be below market rate rents. We set up formulae in the voluntary settlement, I'm sorry, not the voluntary settlement agreement, but in the conditional use permit, special use permit condition, excuse me, which use the average median income and 80%, 50% to do a mechanism for doing that, but many affordable dwelling unit proposals do. And those will effectively be subsidized housing units for 30 years. Site plans and construction have continued until today, and building is, as you've seen for yourself, ongoing. As the commission is aware, I'm sure, however, of the acreage that Mr. Ockery had acquired, roughly half of it was in the town, but the other half in the county. That's why we're here. The town has had a long policy of declining to extend public utilities into the county area for reasons that you heard from Mr. Kirk. It's been famously said that civilization follows a sewer line. And so without public utilities, the possibility for growth are difficult to achieve and certainly difficult to control what ends up on that unless you have certain agreements. From an early point in this process of developing the town portion, Mr. Ockery wanted to bring the county portion in and develop them together. At his request, Mr. Ockery's request, we very early began drafting a settlement agreement. we call it now a voluntary settlement agreement, but for a while, we didn't know if the two jurisdictions would see fit to join us in that effort, and so we considered the possibility of a citizen-initiated petition. I've been involved in, only one citizen-initiated petition has stayed that way, but every other time I've done this, and this will be the fourth, another one had just been filed last week to the commission. Those have all morphed their way into voluntary settlement agreements, and that's what happened here. We talked to the town as early as December of 2020, but as I say, at that time, we thought it might have to be citizen initiated. I met with Art Goff, who is the county's Commonwealth attorney and its county attorney, and Martin Krim, who you met here, the town attorney. I've known Art Goff for quite some time. Mr. Krim and I think we grew up together. We've known each other for many, many years. To discuss this with them and the prospect of it being an agreed settlement, and got to go ahead from both sides to draft something that would be considered by both jurisdictions. And so in June of 2022 now, I did in fact draft a version, which is not the version you see, but it was a version that got the discussion going between the two jurisdictions. Those discussions between the jurisdictions continued until a final agreement on the draft that is before you now was reached the town council to recommended approval in March by the county in April of 2023. So this is a process that has been maturing in the Rappahannock way. Filing with the commission, as you noted, Mr. Chairman, was in November, and we're now here for our first step in the commission's work. I've worked with the commission since Mish was here long ago, and we are most pleased to have you in Washington. And that's coming from someone who lives in Prince William. We're here to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from the commissioners?
Well, actually, I have some questions. I don't know if this is the time.
We recognize that Caesar, I believe, has joined us. Commissioner Johnson has joined us, so we appreciate him getting on. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, if I could just, from my understanding on this project, we've had other voluntary settlement agreements that were kind of initiated because of the desire for economic development. This doesn't look like economic development to me. It seems more altruistic.
That would be a fair statement, I believe, and all would basically agree. There may be some small rent that the social services may be doing here, there would be, but it is not to make money, it's to offset cost. And the social services is in a phone booth right now and needs more space. And so they were one of the early groups that we spoke to, actually not one of the earlier, one of the later groups we spoke to. And I think they didn't decide to come until relatively late in the process. And I'm not sure, well, Gary, who else do we know is going to, you said, who's the other group?
Rappahannock,
Rappahannock.
a community organization of and for adult seniors.
Right. And that's just a community organization. So.
And the cultural cluster, you said, is the use of that defined yet? Or you were sort of indicating that that hadn't been fully fleshed out?
This over here. This has been fully fleshed out. This is approved and it is delineated, and I won't call it immovable, but this is what's going to happen here.
Mm-hmm.
There could be some slight changes and tendencies over time in these buildings, but their function is established.
Okay.
Over here,
Yes.
it's yet to come. It has to do with whether it comes into the town or not. Because utilities are essential.
Is that subject to the 5-year moratorium that it's being requested?
No, that would be on other properties.
Oh.
As the mayor, but not the mayor, but as Gary was pointing out, change comes, as he said, slowly, if at all. I think was his exact picture.
So that part of the project it's zoned for commercial development
Under the county zone.
under the county. When it becomes part of the town jurisdiction, are there any kind of restrictions on how that part of the property?
We'll have to obtain a rezoning and special use permit for it, because it's gonna come in under a transitional zoning to something other than we can use, so we're gonna have to fix that. But the town has been extremely supportive to this point. So I would assume that either, who knows, we could do a zoning text amendment to fix that, or we could do a rezoning action. But it will be done in the same spirit and tenor of what has been done with respect to phase one. I can't speak for the Hockley family, but I would simply suggest that what they've been doing here has been out of civic pride and their love of this sort of thing. Mr. Hockley, as you saw his house, he's lived here for many years.
Okay, so I'm just again, my understanding, so you're showing a cultural cluster, community gathering, that's a public purpose type thing,
Yeah.
working office, kind of community
Yeah.
service, maker space. This is similar to the, kind of a, I don't know, probably art and craft thing.
That was actually, Ms. Deal had come up with the suggestion of making makerspace a possible use. Now, right now, none of that's planned over.
Okay,
It could be because it's been
so
zoned.
it's just the concept. So when the decisions are made, will the town council have an opportunity, since this falls under the town's jurisdiction? Will they determine the use of the property at that time, or is that part of the zoning that takes place in
And
advance?
the phase one is part of the zoning that has been approved. So if someone were to come in and say, well, I'd like to take some space in your office building for makerspace, they could do that as a matter of right now because that's been approved.
So in theory, though, it'll be commercial development, which would be very broad and go beyond those.
Well, I believe, well, maybe it's not, but the uses that are permitted under the special use permit are very strictly defined. Even the retail can't be more than 1,500 square feet.
Okay,
And the retail itself is defined currently.
okay.
Mr. Chair.
And I'm certainly not opposed to development personally, that's my personal view, but I just want to understand how this project will work.
Yes, ma'am.
And I was gonna wait till the town can up, but I think, so the phase one is zoned, it's done a special use permit or something, it's all set. Phase two has a zoning in the county that doesn't translate into if the boundary line adjustment is approved, doesn't translate into the town's zoning code.
It does not.
And so there will be a process post acceptance of the boundary line adjustment for the town to go through a rezoning process.
We'll do the same process, or very much like it that we did for phase one. But more importantly, is the availability then of utilities to.
Sure. But the uses could be the same as phase one. It could be different depending on
Good.
what the town decides is important.
Yeah, among the conversations that have been had is a public meeting area, for example, over here. But then that's something that, this is rumbling around in Charles Ockham's head. But the concept of making it publicly available, this, for example, right down here, this is a concept of potentially a little bandstand, because this is a nice sloping hill here. And because of where people are located, there's virtually, this rises up, the acoustics would be mitigated. So I don't know if that's a plan we intend to stick with, because I'm just helping, he's gonna make the decision, but that would be a potential other thing that could be done, or just outside of picnic area. But for the citizens of the community. All of this is being done through, Mr. Ockery has an operating foundation called the Sherwood Fund. And that's who's actually financing this operation. Blackhead was an LLC formed to run this and call it Rush River Commons. The Sherwood Fund is financing this, and it's financing largely as a charitable operation.
Is there contemplated maybe in the future of a link between the current phase that's going on and the second phase? Like, for instance, going over the river that would be,
Yes.
I don't know, a bridge or something, or is there some way for that community to get to the other side?
Yes, sir. Let's see. Well, this is a better picture. Make sure this will be better. The answer is there'll be crossings here, bridging of the wetlands and the stream here. And as able to park up here and come off of Warren here, because we've checked it with all this been room of VDOT, there's enough room, spacing and sight distance to come in here across from the existing Old Mill Road. Coming through here, I think that's Old Mill, from the fire station here, I think it's Old Mill. But that'll be plenty of room to park. But you'll be able to walk from the area that's already in phase one. And again, that black line is the distinction between 1 and 2.
Oh, good.
So yes, they were thought of from the beginning as a whole.
Good. Okay.
The purpose of the annexation is to be able to extend the sewer line to the new property. Would you not be able to do that otherwise?
Correct.
So that's the crux of it.
Yeah, the town has built a sewage treatment plant, has a water system. The county does not. And so, and because of the policies the town has adopted, doesn't want to extend those out into county land generally for fear, in effect, that it, talk about the waterfall effect, I think it was maybe what phrase that Gary used. That put it here, why don't I get it there? And I don't think either the county or the town want to see that happen. And so that's why they want to retain it for the areas that are in town boundary. In fact, one of the other things we did when we did these rezonings was we amended the boundary of the water and sewer service districts to include this property. So
The housing units, can you describe those? Looks like maybe 3 or 4 buildings.
Steve, why don't you help me a little bit, Steve, because I think that how they modified a little bit because of the engineering. And so Steve can probably tell you what happened, has changed because of that. There was also, was the tree involved as well? No, tree issue, save tree issue. No. Okay.
Hi, Steve Plesko, project manager for the project. We have 5 separate buildings for the residential housing. There's 3 building types. 2 larger buildings here that are closer to the stream, we call those our villa buildings. They're 2 stories. All the units are set up like apartments. The villa units have 6 units per building. Ground floor has 4 1-bedroom units. Everything is ADA accessible on the ground floor. Second floor, you go up the interior stair, and there's 2 2-bedroom units on the second floor. Then we have 3 duplex units. The ones on the end are 2 2-bedroom units. And then the middle one is 2 3-bedroom units. All buildings are 2 stories, nothing taller than 2 stories.
And I would guess that there's a lot of service employees from the inn possibly and others who need affordable housing in this area. I'm wondering is there a shortage right now?
Severe dearth of housing.
And people commuting in from other towns?
I'm sure the folks at the inn could tell you more, but I used to live in Middleburg for 20 years, and when the Salamander project opened there, similar to the town here, most of the people, there was no housing there. So a lot of people were commuting in like from Leesburg or Points West to come to work. There's just not a lot of housing here. And there's also a shortage of housing for elderly folks, single moms. So that's kind of what we're targeting for people that have a real need, that want to stay in the community and have some affordable housing. There's really no options in the county today.
Okay.
If I may, commissioners, I would say that is generally true. Most of our employees that work in town are commute into the town, whether it's at the inn or at the Ballard shop or frankly, just down the road to the sheriff's office or the school. Great majority of folks are commuters because there's not a lot of affordable housing or what I would call workforce housing in the broad community.
It sounds, I would just say, make one comment. It sounds very commendable to me what is being done here. It's, I would think this would enhance the quality of life in the community. It appears that the town and the county are on the same page on this.
Well, I give huge credit to Gary and to his board. Town council, I think, early on was quite I mean, Fred can speak for that better than I can, but the town council is early on helping us out with the rezoning and stuff. But Gary has been instrumental with his board in coming along and saying, we get it. We don't want you to spread this thing too badly or too far and wide, but this looks like a good project to us as well. So that's why they passed the resolution supporting the draft.
Just to add a little more color to one of the questions you have, library, the project's always been designed as kind of a campus to be linked, all together. And one of the things I'll say about Mr. Ocker, he's an environmentalist. So first and foremost was to protect the environmental resources on the project. So in the site plan, you can see we've got the stream corridor, but there's no road crossings of that. That's sacrosanct. We're not crossing with any roads. We are going to do some pedestrian linkages, as John said, across it. We're also starting to work on an environmental restoration of the stream corridor. There's a lot of invasive species in the corridor, and we kind of think this is kind of like the green heart of the project. So we want to go in there, take out the invasive species, put in some more natural plantings. Not to get into too much detail, but the stream's an old stream. Streams sometimes over time, they get in size, they kind of go down in the ground. And then the adjacent wetlands that are next to them get disconnected hydraulically. And so that changes the vegetation and habitat. So what we want to do is restore some of that hydrology, add more plantings that are native. It'll improve the, the habitat for the critters and also help with the aesthetics of it. And again, linking it so there's a pedestrian linkage. People in the residential can have a nice place to walk. People that are visiting, if we do a public amphitheater space, it's all connected.
And then we've been working, I don't know, frankly, I don't even remember the file again, but been working with the Land Trust of Virginia to establish an easement, conservation easement.
We've done that for the phase, for the portion of the project within the town boundary in phase one, all the stream corridor and that's already been, we've got an easement, Land Trust of Virginia, permanent easement for that. And we'll do a similar thing when we do phase two. We've already talked to them. They're like, please add to it. It's great.
And the chairman of that board is Burge Watkins, and you may know, a good friend of ours.
Are there any other questions from the commissioners for all presenters?
Mr. Chair, if I
Yes.
may, maybe it's not for Martin, could the commission get a copy of the town zoning ordinance? And just highlight where the village commercial and where the transitional zoning sections are, so we can take a look at that.
Yeah, it's all on the town website, but I'm happy to give you specific citations, but not this second.
Okay, no, that's, citations would be great. Okay, yeah, thank you.
So we'll move right along here, listen to the Rappahannock County Administrator, Gary Purdy. Welcome, Gary.
Well, first, thank you all for coming and enjoying our community today, and we brought the weather for you, so I hope you appreciate that. I want to make sure we're on the same page. All of what you heard about, the great things in phase one, you don't need to be here for that, right? That's happening, it's hurtling forward. We're very grateful to Mr. Ockery and his team for making that happen. And so what is, expanding this into phase two, there are some issues for the project, and you heard water and sewer. That's the primary hurdle of extending that water and sewer out of the town and then kind of getting that camel's nose under the tent and the town not having control of what the county does for zoning or permitting or approvals connecting to their line. So they want to have control over that, which is understandable. You also think common zoning for the entire parcel, common zoning practices, common ARV, the project would otherwise have to deal with the county planning commission and the town planning commission, and that's the town council and the board of supervisors. And so that brings complexity, confusion, cost into the scenario where if it's the little bit of acreage is brought into the town, that can all come together in a uniform system. So a master plan can then be reflected in a common set of rules. As LeGrand mentioned, you were talking about zoning. And so what we think from the county perspective, or the board thinks, that this makes sense with reasonable conditions, right? And that's the give and take over the last year or whatever it's been. What are those reasonable conditions that make this make sense for the community? And some of those were dark sky compliant lighting, and we drove by our small county park, which is an international dark sky park, which means you come out here when it's a new moon and you can see the band of the Milky Way, right? You can't do that just in 60 or 90 miles towards DC. It's totally occluded by all the light pollution. And so they've certainly agreed to do that. And then the zoning would not allow additional residential housing on that portion of the project. And that was important to some of the elected officials on the county board of supervisors side of the equation. And that was really the primary limitations. You mentioned some others on making sure we take this in a very stepwise approach. The term economic development was mentioned earlier. We don't really use that word here in Rappahannock County. You might have noticed that you don't have big box stores, you don't have subdivision streets, and we just don't do that here. And I mentioned on our tour, we were 7,400 people in the 2010 census, we're 7,400 people in the 2020 census, and we're pretty much okay with that. And so incremental, gradual, thoughtfully planned out growth is reasonable. And doing it in this project, which is really otherwise not commercially viable, we are very grateful to Mr. Ockery to support our comprehensive plan, which is growth in and around our villages and towns. That's all I really wanted to say, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Anyone?
I have some, I don't know the right person to answer the questions, but is that what you want to go, or do you want to? Okay. So whoever wants to answer them. In the package that we got, it talks about, the zoning and for someone.
Limitations on use, number 3, and the exhibit 6.
Yes, limitations of use, yeah. So it says that that the town, shall be zoned village commercial. So, but can the agreement actually?
That's an initial zoning as it comes in, and then if you read on, any rezoning will not allow it to move into some sort of residential component. So the process that Mr. Foote mentioned will envision what is going to happen from there. But as soon as it kind of drops from the county general commercial or commercial general, like we read it, into the town, it has to be something.
Yeah.
And there didn't want there to be any confusion about what it was right after the ordinance public hearing on either side.
Got it. Thank you. That's helpful. The other question I had is, we talked a little bit on the, it was in the rest of, in the information. Number 8, I'm sorry, I don't even know what document I'm in. It says on the same day, the town, this was, maybe it's minutes. Town council further unanimously adopted a resolution that it be the policy of the town not to accept applications for boundary line adjustments from adjoining properties currently in the county for a period of 5 years. But I didn't see that in the agreement.
You're absolutely right.
Okay. So is that?
So those are fluid conversations that were happening between the board and the town
Okay.
throughout the process. And I think there's a general agreement between the bodies that would make sense, but it's not binding in the Exhibit 6.
I was curious as I didn't see it again. Okay. That's the question. Yep, that's it.
Any other questions from the commissioners? We're gonna give an opportunity for Mayor Whiteside to give us some closing remarks. Thank you, appreciate you staying with us.
All I can say is thanks to the commission again for coming to Little Washington, to Rappahannock County to visit us and consider the application before you. As I think you've heard from the county and from the applicant, this is in line with the way we view our community moving forward. Certainly in keeping with what we've been thinking about as far as what I hate to use the word development, but sort of improvements in our community would look like going forward. And I encourage the commission to authorize this adjustment. Thank you.
Thank you for having us here, Rob. I would just like to make one comment and echo Commissioner Lauterberg's statement about the the fact that this is a commendable way of dealing with your land and the needs of your citizenry and future needs of your businesses as well. Because you're gonna need to have some workforce housing somewhere, and this is the perfect example of helping people to get in a place so they can serve the community and help the community grow economically and otherwise. So it's a very well thought out plan. We appreciate your going through it and going through the couple of years that you had to kind of massage it, and we think you're getting it right. So thank you for that. Any other comments from the commission?
I have a question. I guess this is for the town. When you were hearing the board package, you included the minute from a town council meeting. And I think there was a report from the economic development director.
We don't have an economic development director, so
There is no economic.
other than me.
Maybe that's on the county side.
And we don't have enough numbers. We haven't, you might have been a regional group that came in.
Oh,
You can refer me to what page you're on.
Page 4 or 5, so, page 4.
Okay, thanks. It is an economic development authority. The town has an economic development authority, it's just a form.
Yes, we just created that to begin to promote some additional use of some vacant commercial property in town.
The county wouldn't dare institute such an authority. We'll leave that to the busting county.
As a way to provide grants to small businesses who might want to set up shop in town, so that's what.
Exhibit 4.
Exhibit 4.
Exhibit 4.
Exhibit 4, page 4 or 5, top of the page, paragraph B, economic development authority.
What page is that?
It's page 19 of our package. PDF page.
Yeah, I was just thinking this fellow has a pretty tough job to do.
Or easy one.
Or nothing to do at all.
True.
So yeah, it's the economic.
As the guy who has to serve as the chair of that authority, yes, it's a tough row to hoe, as my grandfather would say.
Okay.
Well, thank you all. Anything else, Luke, that any thoughts for tonight or anything administrative we should know?
So just a couple of things, Barton and Gary, Barton, if I give the citation, really great, but if we need anything, we'll let you know. We will have our report ready by July 12th. And I will let you know about, that'll be public 2 weeks before. So whatever date that is, the end of June is when we will have the public version of that available for everybody to look at. Before we vote on it. And we will be back here in this room at 7 o'clock for the public hearing. So that's gonna start 7 o'clock on the dot. To hear from members of the community about what they think about this. So, that is all. That's all I have.
All right. Then,
And
one last,
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, this is Caesar Johnson. I just wanted to thank my fellow commissioners for allowing me to attend this meeting. Well, let me put my picture up.
well, thanks for joining us.
I want to thank the town officials for having us. I really appreciate the opportunity to be a part of this grand body. I look forward to voting and being in the town meeting tonight. Thank you all for this opportunity to let me be here virtually. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for joining us, Steve. With that, we'll adjourn for the afternoon and we'll see you at 7.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, go ahead. Oh, yeah. Don't try to church, they're good friends.
Leave our paper here.
Yeah. Well, leave everything here. And then we'll be